Alright, so we're making a bacon and smoked Gouda cheesecake today. I'm going to start with a ratio of 2 parts Parmesan cheese to 1 part panko breadcrumbs. I'm going to add to it 2 tablespoons of butter. That's all the butter. And this is going to form the crust for our little cheesecakes. We're going to fill in the crust, just like you would make a cheesecake crust, right? Right? So right now I'm just going to fill them, and then we're going to pack them down. And the amount I made is enough for 2 recipes, which means I'm only using half of what I have. What we're going to do is pack down our crust. See? And, you know, in the traditional cheesecake style. Okay? So now that these are done, the next step will be to saute some onions and a mixture of Refresno and sweet yellow and sweet orange peppers. Okay, so we're going to saute in 2 tablespoons, 1 tablespoon of butter and 1 tablespoon of olive oil. We're going to saute the onions for 5 minutes on medium-high heat, and then we're going to add the peppers, and we're going to saute for another 2 minutes. And in the meantime, all we're going to do is add a little fresh pepper. We're not going to add any salt because we're going to get all the salt we need from the Parmesan in the crust, the smoked Gouda, and the bacon. So it'll just take a minute. And in the meantime, while we're waiting for that, we can start grating the Gouda. So I'm going to take them 3 pieces at a time in the food processor. Now we have our cheese, and that's really it. Now I have sufficient heat so we can introduce the onions into the butter. It doesn't have to be smoking hot, but it helps to have it a little warm. Alright. Now, 5 minutes on medium-high heat. And while this is sweet, now we're going to introduce the peppers. Okay, look at that. Now we're going to give it a little fresh pepper using my chef's pepper mill. 38 at every Williams Sonoma. It's a very good investment. And the next stage is we're going to cream the cream cheese that's been brought to room temperature. Okay? And we're going to start with putting all of the cheese in here, as well as, and this is important, 3 tablespoons of double cream. That's 1, 2, 3 tablespoons of double cream, or if you're not as lucky as I am, a quarter cup of heavy cream. And we're going to cream these together using a hand mixer. All right, we're going to start on slow heat. As part of the creaming process, we want to make sure that we get a really nice and velvety cheesecake. And this is the simplest way to do it, with a plastic spatula. Okay. That's good. Now our onions are ready. All right. And what we're going to do now is going to remove it from the heat, and we're going to let this cool slightly while we introduce the next ingredient, which are 4 cold eggs, one at a time. Okay, so now we're going to whisk in 4 extra large eggs into the cheesecake mixture, which is basically right now is just the cream and the cream cheese. And we're going to mix it to incorporate before we add the other one. That's number 2. Now is the good time to take a quick little break and scrape down the sides to make sure we're whisking everything uniformly, that we don't have great big lumps of cream cheese anywhere, and that everything is getting incorporated with the eggs and the air that we've been whisking into the cream cheese. Number 3. If you've noticed, the first one didn't incorporate easily, but these, the last ones, actually incorporate extremely simply, because now there is a foundation for them to adhere to. And that's it. One thing you definitely don't want to do is overmix your cheesecake, because that means you're going to end up with a cracked cheesecake, and that's not very good. Okay, so now we're going to start by adding 2/3 of our rendered bacon into the cheesecake. And we're not going to be mixing it with a mixer anymore. We're just going to be folding everything in. Okay. Okay. And there's 1/3 of it. And we're going to reserve that as decoration for the top of the cheesecakes. Okay. So now we have the bacon mixed into the cheesecake. Next step is the onions and the peppers. And we're going to incorporate that next. All right. again, gently. Yeah, we don't want to really mix it as much as we want to fold everything. Okay. Okay. And now, before we whisk in the cheese, the Gouda, we're going to heat up the oven. We're going to start out at 400 degrees. We want the oven to be at 400 degrees when we put the in, but as soon as we put it in, we're going to reduce it down to 350 degrees. All right, so while that's happening, we'll go do this. All right. Now, using the food processor and the shredder attachment, I went ahead and I shredded our Gouda. So basically, we're going to take it in steps, in 3 stages. We're going to add the Gouda. Again, just going to fold it. And that's all we're doing. Just folding in the Gouda. And there's the second batch. A lot of people will probably be looking at this and wondering, isn't that too much? Well, we're actually making a double recipe. And the last batch goes in. And then we'll be ready. And then we'll be ready to actually fill our little pans. Alright, so now this is how we're going to fill our little cupcakes. We're just going to go from spoon to spoon. And basically we're going to make 12 of these at a time. Top up each one of them and push down slightly. Okay. This allows the cheesecake mix to actually settle into our crust and adhere properly. That's why we do it in 2 stages. And we'll do the same to this side. It's had a chance to settle, so now is our chance to finish it up and top it. This way, there will be no air pockets and there will be no cracked tops. I feel sorry for the vegetarians out there. But I suppose you can make this without the bacon and just call it a smoked Gouda cheesecake. But there's something about the pork fat that cannot be replicated any other way. Alright. So while that's happening, we're going to actually use the rest of our recipe to make a cheesecake that we're going to use as a wedge cut cheesecake in the traditional sense. So I'm going to pack in my crust. Okay, and now we are going to basically top our pan in here with the remainder of our recipe. So now I'm going to spread it. And you see, Very good. And now, because of the size of it, there's one additional step before we decorate. And that is to tap it down. We want to make sure there are no air pockets, and then we'll go ahead and garnish. All right. So when our pans are ready to come out of the oven, then we'll put this one in. All right. So now it's been 30 minutes, and this is our cheesecake. It's coming out, and what we're going to do is we're going to take these out and let them cool down for about 15 minutes. In the meantime, it's time to put the other one in. Now this one, because it's earthenware, does not need the extra protection of the other sheet pans. So it's going in just with one sheet pan. That's it. And because it's a little wider, it's going to cook for 45 minutes. And that's it. Go ahead. So the finished dish is plated with a very simple gastrique made with dried sour cherries. And that's dinner in a nutshell. You never recorded it.